excited to be here with you today in Helsinki, and very excited to be talking to my interview guest here, Peter. Peter, I think most people know you already quite well, especially here in the Helsinki startup ecosystem. But let's go way back into time. You started Silo AI at a time where AI was not on top of everyone's mind. You founded it way before the current hype cycle. Do you sometimes think it would have been easier to start it in today's environment? Or do you think starting so early was a competitive advantage?
Yeah, that's a big question, and it's great to be here. So, as you said, we started early compared to many, but not early in relation to sort of this technology. It's been built out for the past like 7 decades, and I've myself spent sort of a career in academia before setting up Silo. So left the professorship with my research group and a few other co-founders to set up Silo in 2017, having spent sort of close to 10 years before that in academia and at the intersection of academia and industry. It was a very different environment to where we are today, and the opportunities were different, and you had to approach them differently. A fun fact, I guess, is that if you look at the AI companies of today, close to none of them were founded before like 2020 or even 2022. So, you know, there's OpenAI and a few others that were founded before Silo AI. Then another sort of, I think, crucial element to our path is that we bootstrapped. So we didn't raise external capital before 2022. We were 200 AI scientists, majority PhDs, a fairly strong AI lab already at the time. And I think that was the right path because the environment was just so different. Many of the there were many AI companies in 2017. Most of them do not exist anymore because the market was different. The technology wasn't really mature. Enterprises weren't really mature. So you know, eventually then the key question we asked was, you know, how do we actually penetrate the market and create value? So we chose to then start from self-driving and focusing on automotive, on everything from cars to vessels to forestry machines and mining machines and so forth, and then expanded through a number of different segments all the way then to LLMs and Gen AI at the very end. And most people now know us as the AI company that proved throughput scaling on AMD GPUs in around 2022, 2023, and basically then last year joined forces with AMD, and I'm now running the global AI lab there. We're helping frontier labs across the world to basically build on AMD compute platforms.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Well, bootstrapping an AI research lab is something that would nowadays be unthinkable, I think, in this changed environment. What other challenges did you and your founding colleagues had in the early days of Silo.ai, and how did you overcome those challenges?
Yeah, so, I mean, obviously, you know, whatever company or journey you enter, the early stage is always difficult, and you sort of rarely know what you're doing, especially not if you're a first-time founder leaving a professorship. I had never sort of ran a company at the time. Well, I mean, to the extent that I mean, we did not know how to approach the market in 2017. I guess I can defend myself and our other co-founders in the sense that no one knew because the market was challenging. You know, we faced a very difficult first year, 1.5 years. We did not have the capital, obviously, as we were bootstrapping, and eventually ended up pivoting quite significantly after 1.5 years. We were going after the enterprise market first, the less mature companies, and I became the CEO. We swapped roles with one of my co-founders in about 1.5 years in, And then we fully sort of embraced the more mature companies, the ones building, the ones that knew what AI is, the ones that had already doubled down on the technology, and that was in the self-driving space, which sort of allowed us to actually sort of build out the business out of it. And then eventually only in 2022, 2023 to sort of double down on building out a model serving platform, AI platform, and then our own models and serve the world with those. And actually 2 days ago, now as part of AMD, we announced AMD Enterprise AI Suite as the software layer to interface AMD compute platform. So that's sort of how long it took to actually get really to the global market.
Mm-hmm. Well, a lot has changed since you started in 2017, and there's an ongoing global race for AI dominance, right? What is missing in Europe in order that Europe can play a competing role in the future? Like, is it capital? Is it maybe a lack of talent, lack of ambition, too much regulation? What is missing that Europe really can compete in the future?
Yeah, that's obviously sort of a high-dimensional, complex topic, and I guess we could sort of spend the rest of these few minutes on only that topic. But I mean, I think the world has changed. So many of the things that I said earlier on, the early days of Silo, some of them might be true still today, and challenges still today, but I mean, the opportunity is just different. So obviously, the environment in which you tap into that opportunity has to support it in a different way. And I do think that we have the talent. We have an extremely strong talent base in Europe, and Silo significantly benefited from that and still benefits from that. And you oftentimes say that you need 3 ingredients for AI. That's data, talent, and compute. I mean, that's a little bit of a cliche, but nevertheless, we have those. I kind of also think that we have capital, because my perspective is that capital is global and good initiatives will attract capital. So, even though we could do a lot still to sort of ensure that we have late-stage capital in Europe or better access to it, and that there is European capital accessible to late-stage companies, I think the biggest challenge is the single market and the fact that, or lack of single market, the fact that we live in an extremely fragmented Europe with multiple countries, 27 if you wish. And the key question for a scale-up eventually is, are you able to deliver on the promises when you raise capital? Because I believe you can raise capital. Are you able to deliver on those promises in Europe? And I think the reality is that if you just look at other markets like the US, where you could basically set up shop in New York and then scale all the way to California, it's just very different to run your go-to-market approach to different countries, starting off with one and addressing the legislation, regulation, the different, say, language and culture and so forth, and putting in place a separate go-to-market for each of these countries. At the same time, while we should push for change, I think it's going to take some time. I'm sort of optimistic in the sense I do think we can do things in the short term as well. So there's plenty of opportunity to tap into.
You briefly touched on the topic of legislation, regulation. Do you think there's too much regulation going on in Europe? Speaking about things like EU AI Act, or do you think like this Europe-wide policies could even be helpful for startups because they provide clarity?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I don't believe regulation is our superpower. I don't believe in the Brussels effect. But maybe on the other hand, I mean, while it is something that is a concern, I think my concern comes from fragmentation. The fact that it's not just one sort of regulation. It's different legislation and regulation at the national level. And you as a company need to sort of eventually address that. And heterogeneity at that level is sort of, that is a challenge for a company that is putting in place an ambitious plan to scale. But if you basically look back, what has happened with the EU AI Act, having looked at the process since 2017, we actually got to a pretty good position from where it started. It started from, in 2017, it started from a discussion on how to regulate systems, methods, techniques, AI as a technology. I don't think you can regulate AI as a technology because eventually, as we all know, AI is just a feature of products, and those products could be self-driving vehicles, or they could be assistants and chatbots, or they could be social media platforms, or they could be lawnmowers and vacuum cleaners. So those certainly should be regulated in different ways, and that's where we ended up, in a sense, now a bit more than a year back with the EU AI Act. So it's use case specific, application oriented, it has the risk categories, which you might agree or disagree whether this categorization sort of went well in every dimension. But eventually I would say the approach is good. Then the only concern I really have, a larger concern, is that at the very end, the GPAI category was added, which I think there's no consensus still on how to define what GPAI really is. And I would even say that we took multiple steps back. So where we came from, where we eventually sort of started with regulating systems, methods, techniques, and so forth, and got away from that perspective to the world, that was introduced again with GPAI. And I'm, again, optimistic in the sense that I believe we will sort that out and solve how GPAI is going to be defined.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Well, coming back to the topic of talent, you're also serving as professor at the University of Aalto University here in Finland, and you are very close to AI talent in Europe. In the US, they're paying millions and millions in terms of salary for this up-and-coming AI talent. So they are attracting all the talent from across the world, I guess. How do you see Europe in that talent race? Do we have enough talent? Do we have enough upcoming, very knowledgeable engineers and researchers in that field? Or are we losing to the US and other parts of the world?
Yeah. That's actually an interesting question, and I think that's extremely important from many different perspectives. So I would say that Europe as an environment was an opportunity for Silo. I mean, we always served global customers. Majority of our customers were always across the world since day one, and up until the very end when we joined forces with AMD, and certainly obviously now as we serve as the global AI lab and help companies ranging from OpenAI to most other AI labs that are running on AMD compute. So we have competitive talent in Europe, and the salaries are at a different level. I would say they're still fair, but they're at a different level. So it's possible to tap into unique talent in Europe, and I actually think that everything really starts from talent. And that's really the sort of ecosystem perspective to things. Talent is not enough, and eventually it's also a risk. I mean, we risk losing talent unless we have the ambitious initiatives that every single sort of talented person is looking for. So academic clusters, I would say, has always been the sort of the core of a vibrant ecosystem. It's an opportunity for Finland and Europe. That's how Stanford eventually was the core or seed of Silicon Valley, around which then small companies that became large companies eventually facilitated the growth of other companies, and that became an ecosystem. And in the same way, I think Paris has now paved the way in Europe by basically actually attracting big tech. So an strong academic cluster known for the strong sort of maths research since many decades already, and then attracting Meta, DeepMind, say OpenAI during the past years to set up their R&D centers there for talent to have ambitious moonshots to work on. And eventually these people will at some point leave and set up their own company, the Mistrals of the world, or then join a local company. And that is really sort of when I alluded to earlier that we haven't lost the race, even though we're not necessarily providing the best environment to scale companies in Europe, which I think is the most, it's not the only question, but it's a key question to solve. I do think that everyone here can contribute to building stronger ecosystems. And that is basically at play. That's happening at the moment in Paris. We can see Zurich and the sort of academic cluster around EPFL and ETH doing, in a sense, the same play. You have the big techs there as well, which provides these sort of opportunities for talented people to tap into. And now you can see a wide range of different successful AI startups being set up in Zurich.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, speaking about contributing to the growth of the ecosystem, you're also involved in funding AI research, and you're investing in AI-related startups. What are the latest developments there? Is there a project or a research project or a startup that you're currently most excited about? Some news that you can share with the audience?
Yeah, so maybe actually before tapping into that, because I'd be happy to talk about some of those activities. I think it's worth noting that the AI market is sort of multifaceted in the sense that today's opportunities, as I alluded to earlier, are quite different to what it was previously, and that comes from the fact that the AI application layer is just basically something that anyone can tap into. Anyone can tap into the existing powerful models, and I don't want to say just wrap around, but basically that's what it is. And it's a tremendous opportunity. The software industry is being reshaped today by basically these simple software products, you could say features, that embed the most powerful models and allow anyone to build an AI company. And then, of course, you have the other layers in AI, be it infrastructure and tooling, foundation models, and so forth, where obviously, the question is whether we can actually tap into them as Europe. And we know that we don't have the strongest foundation model or frontier AI labs in the world. But at the same time, there are companies that are basically paving the way in, say, like Lovable and Legora and others that we've seen here. But then what I wanted to highlight is really the sort of industrial opportunity in Europe. We've been complaining we don't have the tech platforms, and that's kind of true. At the same time, we have the industrial platforms. We have the biggest life science companies in the world. We have the biggest automotive companies in the world. We have the biggest gaming companies in the world in Europe. They are sitting on platforms. We know also that big tech is innovating in this domain. So the question is, who will take the lead in AI? Is it in, say, protein folding or other opportunities in life sciences, or self-driving in automotive, or as an example in gaming and using generative AI to create sort of three-dimensional worlds and games eventually. And that's why it's not only an opportunity, it's also a risk for the existing strong industry in Europe. But yes, now looking at this sort of multifaceted opportunity, we've been doing a number of different initiatives during the past year especially. One obviously that has been close to my heart is to give back to the academic community. Together with many, I've helped Finland set up the Ellis Institute, which is Europe's leading, I would say, AI research initiative. The first one was set up in Tübingen, second one now in Finland. I've donated a number of professorships to drive that activity. I personally believe there will be multiple such in Europe, say Zurich, Copenhagen, looking at it at the moment. And that is really strengthening these sort of academic clusters that we have across Europe. And then obviously I believe that it's important to build a vibrant ecosystem around these clusters, and that obviously it requires that there is funding for early stage companies where I've had the opportunity and chance, and I would say I've been lucky to see some of these companies grow that we've seen here also on stage, like Lovable and Legora as an early stage backer. And then ultimately also building technology. And you alluded to the fact that, which we touched upon on the backstage. So basically, yes, I mean, one of the initiatives that my family office has been backing since the past 9 months or so is a physical AI-focused lab called Nest AI, and Nest AI is today announcing a funding round of 100 million to build Europe's leading physical AI lab.
Congratulations for that. Maybe some applause for it. Awesome. Well, and we have many founders here in the audience. We're on the founder stage, so let's go shortly back to this founder mindset. If you would need to start all over again, Peter, if you would need to build Silo.ai again, knowing what you know now, what would you do differently in today's world?
Yeah, there's not actually much that I really regret. So I was lucky to have a co-founding team that came with a wide variety of experience. I was very inexperienced myself. I think the reality is that AI has been changing so rapidly that whatever mistakes we made, it was difficult not to make mistakes because everything was immature. I think what sort of having gone through this journey once, what you get is more confidence. You obviously learn from building a strong culture, a values-based culture, building a team, recruiting people. Up until Silo was a bit more than 300 AI scientists at the time. We joined forces with AMD and so forth. So there's a lot of sort of practical tips and tricks. I still somehow sort of, for me, even though you build a little bit more confidence, I've still tried to be sort of, humble in the sense that I think there's still plenty to learn. I don't expect that all of the learnings that we got during the Silo journey are relevant going forward. So keeping that humility, I believe is crucial and important. And then what I've said on, I'm kind of trying to deliver on what I've said on a number of different occasions, especially during the past 6 months, which I truly believe we in Europe need to be more ambitious. And I think that's one of the things that you kind of get when you've seen the journey, and that is the ambition is what is really driving our next steps. And I think a crucial element to that is what I think we believe what we need here in Europe is peer support. And we have founders that have done amazing journeys. Some of them have been here today. And I really hope that they're giving back to the community and helping especially the younger generation be more ambitious.
Awesome. Well, those were good closing words. Thank you very much for sharing your insights, Peter. Yeah, it's been a pleasure. Good conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you.